Great. So as Stefan mentioned, we will now be moving into a practical demonstration of the digital transformation management platform, covering some of the concepts that Stefan has previously mentioned. I will be performing a demonstration of RDoC, essentially how we can leverage the concept of a digital asset portfolio, the requirements with regards to building a digital organization, designing the transformation and executing the digital aspirations, and how we can essentially manage the assets that we are onboarding into such a platform. After this, we will perform a quick demonstration of Power BI and the portal as well. But for now, I'm just going to switch screen into RDoC. So essentially, the first part of this demonstration is how do we define the digital organization? As part of the digital transformation management platform, we have various key models and key frameworks that we leverage as part of the digital transformation management effort. And one such model that I am here presenting is what we refer to as the digital canvas. The digital canvas is essentially a blueprint for an organization that defines the digital organization from the perspective of digital domains, which are essentially key focus areas or key areas that an organization needs to take control of in order to master or take control of their digital transformation. This particular model is essentially what we refer to as a capability model. It essentially presents the capabilities required for an organization to transform into a digital organization, hence digital capabilities. As I mentioned, this particular model is broken down into 12 key domains. I'm just going to briefly touch upon these domains. We have at the top of our digital canvas, and I'm just zooming on the RDoC presentation over here. At the top of the digital canvas, we have our customer channels, which is essentially how we can ensure that our customer interactions and our customer touch points are effectively being managed. We have experience orchestration, which is how can we ensure that our customer interactions are effectively orchestrated with regards to our customer journeys, our customer profiles, our customer personas, and so on. How can we take control of our service orchestration, which is essentially our customer relationships? How can we ensure that our relationships or interactions with our customers from a initiation phase or a, let's say, an opportunity phase is managed, tracked, and executed all the way to fulfillment? How can we manage our customer partner relationships? How can we manage the digital workspace? So essentially, how do we manage our employees' access to internal resources, and essentially do the internal resources have the ability to execute the services that are required? How can we take control of core operations and core delivery, which is essentially fulfilling core services? How can we take control of organization governance, essentially managing organization change, organization risk, and organization compliance? And how can we manage our digital back office or support services, including the organization administration? What I've just run through over here is referred to as the horizontal domains of digital transformation, which is essentially managing the life cycle of customer interaction from the point of customer interaction all the way to delivering services, which is essentially the domains that I've just covered over here. On the left and right, we have enabler domains, which are essentially verticals, as you can see over here. And these are essentially designed to support the execution of the horizontal domains. And these are defined as follows. We have on the leftmost side, which is our first vertical domain, which is interoperability and automation. So essentially the various systems that we have in our organization, how are we engaging with these systems? How are we exchanging information? And how do we ensure that the information being exchanged is compatible? The digital security domain, which is how do we ensure that these particular communications, the interactions that we're having are conducted in a secure and controlled manner. And on the right-hand side, we have digital intelligence. So all of the data, all of the transactions, all of the information that we're processing, how are we aggregating all of this information and processing this into insights for our organizations to make smarter and more informed decisions? And how are we managing digital IT, which is essentially the transformation of the digital, or rather the transformation of the IT department into what we refer to as the digital IT department, moving from the administrators of the organization to brokers of digital transformation. So essentially, in a brief summary, what I've presented over here is a definition for the digital organization. We are able to define these particular models for a given organization within the context of a given industry, be that finance, government, retail, industrial manufacturing, oil and gas, and so on. And we essentially frame the capabilities that you see over here within the context of the organization to ensure that we are able to deliver a digital transformation initiative for the organization.
Bilal, if I may add a quick point here, right? So a key takeaway here is, in order for you to succeed with your digital transformation, you need to make sense of a digital organization. And what Bilal has just provided here is one of the ways in which you need to define your digital organization, right? So what is a digital organization? According to what Bilal has here presented, a digital organization has 12 key domains of capabilities. You can define any organization with its digital intent across these 12 domains, right? So very, very important here, 12 key domains of capabilities. If you make sense of it, you are beginning to look like you might be successful with your digital program. 12 key domains of capabilities, making up a digital organization. Bilal?
Absolutely. So essentially, just to quickly summarize, this model is the definitive model for digital transformation management. And essentially, once we have this model defined for an organization, once we have the capabilities identified, an organization is essentially left wondering how they are able to execute their digital transformation. So we talked about how digital transformation initiatives typically have a high failure rate. So essentially, in order to combat this and in order to ensure that the digital canvas is in fact driving digital transformation aspiration for the organization, this model, the digital canvas, is complemented with a model that we refer to as the digital practice canvas. So essentially, the concept of a practice is leveraging the digital canvas domains. So we have the key domains defined within the digital canvas, and we use these same domains to now not frame digital capabilities, but to frame the key initiatives or transformation areas that are required for an organization to essentially guide the execution of digital transformation initiatives. What we mean by this is essentially, if I just quickly go back, we can see over here that if I focus on my channels domain, I can see that I have a channels domain, I have some subgroupings, and I have some digital capabilities for my channels. Within these capabilities, I essentially understand that if I want to take control of my channels, these are the capabilities that are required for execution. However, when I move to the practice canvas, I can essentially see that these capabilities, or rather the maturing or transformation of these capabilities, can be managed through the execution or the activation of these master practices and practices. So essentially managing my omni and opti-channel transformation, managing my mobile first enablement. So of course, ensuring that my channels are available through mobile devices or mobile interactions, intelligent chatbot designs and interactions, commerce transformation, and channel engineering. And essentially what we have done with this particular practice canvas is we have defined for each of the domains previously illustrated in the digital canvas, key practice areas that organizations can use for their digital transformation activation. And what we're seeing over here is essentially a encapsulated version of the practice canvas. And in fact, we are able to define at the initiative level as well the required initiatives in order to execute a particular practice that is related to the digital canvas. So just to quickly summarize, as we are discussing quite a few concepts over here, the digital canvas essentially presents the key capabilities required for the digital organization, but the practice canvas enables the realization and activation of those capabilities through the practice canvas. And within the practice canvas, we have defined the initiatives all the way down to various requirements for each of these initiatives in order to ensure that the digital transformation execution is successful. So we take another quick zoom in over here, and we can see once again, focusing on the channels practice, in this case, the channels practice. We have the channels practice or master practice as we refer to it, various sub-practices or practice areas. And we can see, for example, the mobile first enablement practice, as we refer to it. There are several initiatives to ensure that mobile first enablement is within the organization, and that is rationalizing mobile apps. So typically we see organizations with multiple mobile app solutions, interaction points, the rationalization of these into a single solution. deep mobile experience design, which is taking control of all of the data that is available on a mobile interaction device and the experience for the customer, and mobile first enablement design, which is essentially putting forward the mobile first strategy to ensure that the execution is effectively managed. And if I zoom out over here, you can see that we have created these blue boxes initiatives for each of the practice domains in this case, which relate back to our canvas. And this essentially makes up about 100 to 150 or over 150 initiatives. And we're able to use this as a library of initiatives to ensure that we can deploy rapid, agile, and quick turnaround for digital transformation. So if I were to quickly move on now to show an example of how we are able to execute this. So we have our initiatives defined. I'm just going to be focusing on the IT domain that we see over here, but keeping in mind that we are able to perform the same execution given any domain, including channels, experience, back office, and so on. Focusing now on the digital IT domain, we can see that we have our digital IT master practice and sub-practice areas, and we can see some key areas to move the IT department from a traditional IT department to a digital IT department, including transforming enterprise architecture, taking control and governing IT operations, managing ITSM, cloud-first initiatives, as well as taking control of the ALM lifecycle. As I mentioned, for each of these initiatives, we have various levels of details that we define to ensure that these initiatives are based off best practices as well as organization requirements. And one such example is now I've moved forward into these green boxes that have appeared within the RDoc presentation. And these are essentially defined as transformation use cases. So essentially, we would use the practice canvas starting at practices all the way down to transformation use cases to ensure that the organization transformation is not only guided by the digital canvas, but also driven by particular use cases that are of concern to various organization stakeholders, various organization entities, to ensure that if a particular, in this case, an IT department was concerned with, for example, service architecture design, we are able to understand that this in fact is related to an organization service design initiative, related to the key practice over here, which is in fact driven by my digital capabilities that you can see over here for IT service management. And this essentially provides the basis for various transformation control efforts. So moving quickly back, we can see over here the various use cases that we've defined. And as part of this demonstration, I will essentially be demonstrating how we can take the technology portfolio rationalization use case and essentially what this looks like, particularly in a platform such as RDoc. So this, in a quick summary, was an explanation of the digital canvas and the digital practice canvas, essentially the design and orchestration of transformation for an organization. And once this is activated and instantiated for an organization, once again, leveraging RDoc as the asset portfolio, as previously mentioned, we can see what it looks like when we actually take some of these assets and what it looks like when we process these assets within RDoc, and the outputs are here presented. So we start essentially by developing informative architecture dashboards that essentially allow us to understand the particular state of assets. And in this case, we're looking to bring visibility to assets. We're looking to understand the relationships that affect these particular assets. And we're looking, once we understand where the assets stand, how the assets are related to organization artifacts or organization entities, how we can essentially optimize this particular assets. This particular asset, or in this case, portfolio, focuses on applications, but the same can be applied to any kind of portfolio within the organization, from experience to journeys to customer segments as well. So quickly moving forward, we essentially have a dashboarding or key summarized information for our applications, including the number of applications within the portfolio, as well as supporting information that can be seen over here. From these summarized information, we are able to break down the information into specific detailed information. And we can see over here the various kinds of details that we are able to bring, as well as highlighting visually some of the key gaps that exist within this particular portfolio. And as you can see here, various gaps that exist in such a portfolio. We are also able to understand the visibility of this particular portfolio from a cost perspective, including the license configuration and support configuration. So again, bringing the total visibility of an application portfolio. We can then move on to understanding the key relationships that exist in this particular application asset or portfolio, starting once again with some summarized information for the total application, as well as some supporting key headlines that essentially surmise this particular insights or this particular section. We can start to understand the relationships of a portfolio to various aspects of business operation. So in this case, we're looking at business interactions. Here we're looking at information interactions. Here we're looking at some more technical and integration interactions, and here we have some more infrastructure related relationship information. So essentially, once we are able to summarize this information and process this information in the platform, how essentially are we able to take this data and start to put this towards optimization for the organization? So we have essentially cataloged and essentially documented this particular portfolio. We have analyzed the portfolio to understand where there may be issues or where there may be key areas of concerns. We have also analyzed the key relationships that exist with this particular portfolio to understand any change that is inflicted onto a particular, let's say, application will essentially have knock-on effects throughout the organization. Once we have this view and once we're able to form this view for the organization, we can go back to our digital canvas, which I previously illustrated, and essentially now change the view. And I'm just going to minimize this here. And we can take our digital canvas and start to overlay, in this case, the application portfolio, but again, keeping in mind that this is applicable to any portfolio. And we can start to understand key application relationships to our digital capabilities. And we can start to formulate a view of automation, which essentially allows the organization to understand, for my given digital capabilities, I essentially am automating some capabilities through my applications. There are some capabilities that I am in fact not automating at all. And there are some capabilities that I am automating, but in an inefficient manner. So to give you a brief view of what this means, we can see some applications that are automating our capabilities, as is illustrated here. We can see some gaps, as we refer to it, where there is no evidence of any system or platform that is automating a capability. And then we can see some inefficient examples of automation, which is multiple solutions. And as we can see here, in fact, 5 solutions currently automating a given capability. Immediately, we can start to identify key areas of, let's say, rationalization to streamline the portfolio, reduce cost on the organization. And we can also start to target key areas of improvement. So for example, sticking with the mobile first example that we have been discussing, we can understand that in fact, this organization is missing key mobile interactions by looking at the digital mobile capability. And in fact, there is no mobile app for this particular organization. And we can use the digital canvas to constrain and focus and target our digital transformation efforts. And essentially, we can start to formulate some analyses that essentially allow us to understand where our particular gaps lie, highlighted in red, where particular challenges lie, highlighted in orange, where essentially automation is being run effectively, highlighted in green. And through the white, we can essentially understand all of the key gap areas. And we can essentially take this back full circle all the way back up to our practice canvas to understand that through this particular understanding of this asset portfolio, which is my applications, through the relationships from my digital canvas, which is my mobile interfaces capability, I can now visit my practice canvas, which is linked within the RDoc platform. I can understand that if I want to mature this particular mobile interface capability, I have a related practice, a related initiative, and a related use case. And this essentially is how we can ensure that digital transformation efforts through the use of the DTMP and the DTMF, which is our transformation management framework, is orchestrated effectively.